Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Okay, so good evening everyone. So here we come, the fifth sessions of exploring the Dhammapada in different themes. So by now you should be familiar of which book I'm using. Maybe if today is the first time you log on, so we are using this book called the Dhammapada, the Buddha's Path of Wisdom, and the version that I'm using is by Bhikkhu Buddharakkhito. This one, you can actually download it on the web, free. So we have been looking at Dhammapada in different themes. So in the past 4 months, we have done 4 topics already, 4 themes, and tonight we're going to talk about good friends, and then we have 2 more coming. There's self-reliance and following the Dhamma. So I remember last month when we talked about happiness. Last month we talked about happiness, and I forgot to give to bring out some reflecting points, but I did. I do now. So when we talk about happiness, I just want to do a recall or recap. When we talk about happiness, happiness is different to everybody. The definition of happiness is different to everybody, including human beings or animals. For a dog, maybe getting a favorite treat is a happy thing. Brings happiness. For a bird, maybe getting a bath of water in the hot, continuous summer is very happy. You can see these birds, finding a puddle of water and then, try to wash themselves. They look so happy. We think that they are happy. But for us, human beings, what is the real happiness? So last month we talked about happiness. What brings happiness is the Buddha in the Dhammapada. We have verses saying that with a subdued and guarded mind that brings happiness. So that is in verse 35 and 36. And then we go on to talk about happy association with noble people helps to end sufferings. When sufferings are ended, that means happiness is there, right? So you can see it from verse 376. So how far does happiness go? It can go far, very far, and it can go far and beyond this lifetime. It can go towards the future lifetimes, and even future many lifetimes. And we can see that in verse 169. So I put out a few reflections, and we can actually go and spend a few minutes on these. Is happiness versus unhappiness. How do you actually understand it? Are we like a doggy, or are we like a birdie, or we are whatever? In the past, up until we talk about happiness in November, what is the ratio of happiness versus unhappiness in your past? And then, has this ratio changed over time? And do you actually agree that happiness can travel far and beyond? Okay, the floor is yours. Laurie. Just a minute. Yeah. Ego.
Good evening, people. Good evening, everybody. Wow, happiness was something so different before
Yeah.
than it is now.
Yeah. Okay.
So different.
Yeah.
And so I've been thinking about it all month. And that ratio is, I feel definitely that I'm far more happy now than I was before.
Mm.
Before I was always equating happiness with things that I wanted.
Mm.
And if I got them, I was happy.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
But then I was so frequently unhappy as well.
Ah.
Yeah. So the ratio has definitely changed over time. And I think back, what you talked about, when you mentioned Dhammapada and all of the qualities that you had to have. And I think I have been so lucky at that because, I'm sorry, it's very discombobulated to hear myself talk after myself.
Mm.
But anyway, I feel like the happiness that I have now is more of a peaceful calm and acceptance and a gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel it consistently.
Yeah.
And I'm just very grateful.
Mm.
I think that's a piece of it too.
Great.
So
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that sharing. Of course, it's a sharing. I have no comments. I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to say anything. I just want to hear your sharing of your reflections, happiness versus unhappiness, and all these. You can touch on any of these points, or you can touch on all of them, and yeah. Okay. Next in line. Not me. Titania.
When I was young and miserable, I would look at the calendar and try to find some holiday or
So difficult to hear.
That could cheer me up and make some sense of the present moment. But now I don't do this anymore. So before happiness was something positive, something kind of happy, labeling happy. I don't search for happiness anymore, because I would look into suffering.
Mm.
When I encounter Buddha's teaching and people's teaching, now I really look into my suffering and welcome it with open arms. It's how I accept and embrace suffering that could bring me peace and contentment.
Mm.
And recently, I thought of suffering is actually like a design of happiness, because it's like two poles, right? The opposite of
Yeah.
suffering actually is happiness.
Yeah.
So I think I am starting to understand hints of what Buddha takes on suffering. I was kind of shocked when I first hear about this, but now I don't dare, I'm not thinking, and yeah, I think I will continue to talk and try to discover more happiness and continue through suffering.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, it's very difficult for us to hear because there is a lot of echo, from Laurie or from Titania.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's our speaker.
Everybody's having trouble. Everybody's hearing that echo when you're hearing somebody else speak.
Yeah.
But not when you speak.
So
I'm not sure
okay.
what that is. Sorry.
Okay, maybe we can turn off this speaker Can the TV just play the,
Turn off our speaker?
yeah, so that, can we hear them?
Is that Henry?
I don't know is that Henry, but anyway, it's very difficult to hear. But anyway, the good guy, I catch a little bit of what Titania said, is happiness and suffering is actually like two sides of a coin, right? Is that what you said? Yeah. So yeah, you absolutely right. And so in order to be happy, you need to remove the sufferings. And actually, the Buddha taught everything that the Buddha taught was actually liberation from sufferings. So yeah, thank you for sharing, Titania. So okay. So anybody else before we move on? Okay. Is that better? Do you hear any echo on your side? No?
It's not when you're speaking, it's only the
Okay, only when they speak. So
Yeah.
they are not allowed to speak then.
I don't know.
That means that suits them well, right? They just don't want to speak. So the universe knows that they don't want to speak. So when they speak, they blah 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 and make echoes. But anyway, I'm just joking. Anyway, okay, then let us go to this topic, the next theme on exploring the Dhammapada is the fifth topic. The fifth theme is good friends. Good friends. Okay, so I want to share with you a Chinese saying, a very beautiful Chinese saying. It says where a proximity to red or cinnabar, I make red color, makes one red, and proximity to pitch, like pitch black, makes one black. 近朱者赤，近墨者黑. So friends, we can choose friends. We have the right to choose friends, and we have the right to not choose certain people to be friends. So there are different levels of we call friends. We have very close friends, we have very old friends, we have new friends, or we just have, we're just friends. It's not close, it's not old, it's not new, we're just friends. It seems to be very casual, just friends. Okay, so, but what in the Dhammapada, how would the Buddha address friends? What are the real friends? So let us look at verse 78. 78, it says, do not associate with evil companions. Do not seek the fellowship of the vile. Associate with good friends. Seek the fellowship of noble persons. And you can see, good friends, what happens?
Sorry. Henry noticed that he doesn't see your clip.
Oh, where's my clip? It fell. But you can still hear me. Oh, so that means I don't need the clip.
But he was also hearing sounds in the hall.
I clip it on already. It fell. Never mind. Did I turn it on? Okay. All right. So friends, good friends. You can see from this verse, good friends, noble persons we should be accompanied, we should be associated with noble persons, because noble persons are good friends. seeking the fellowship of noble persons. And whom should we not associate with? Evil companions. So this comes the story. It's talking about Chanya. Who knows who is Channa? Anybody knows who was Channa? Nobody knows who was Channa. You do know who was Channa?
The Buddha's charioteer?
Yeah, who was he? The Buddha's charioteer. Yeah. So he was the one who actually accompanied the Buddha when the Buddha left the palace. So because of his long companionship with the Buddha, Chanya was very arrogant, very proud, and he always looked down upon all the other bhikkhus. And you know that after the Buddha became Buddha, actually Chanya became a bhikkhu. He became ordained as a bhikkhu. And he was very arrogant, and he did not like the chief disciple of the Buddha. So the Buddha has many brilliant disciples, and two of them were Saraputra and Moggallana, right? But Chanya didn't like them a lot. And Chanya said, oh, they are nothing. They came after me, and now look at them. They walk along this place or this vihara like as if I am nobody. So Chanya thought of the Saraputra and Moggallana the way that they belittle him, but actually he was so arrogant. He wanted people to address him as the big brother. So the Buddha actually sent Chanya, asked him to come and see him and tell him, though, well, Chanya, this is not correct. This is not the right kind of behavior. And you should actually, try to change yourself and correct your behavior. But Chanya, though he did not fight back to what the Buddha actually admonished him about, but he kept silent. But he continued to abuse and taunt the two chief disciples. So the Buddha sent for him again and admonished him 3 times. 3 times. Still, Chanya did not change. So the last time was the Buddha sent for Chanya and said, okay, Chanya, these 2 disciples, these 2 people, bhikkhus, are very good friends to you. You should associate with them and be on good terms with them. But Chanya did not listen. So in spite of repeated advices and admonitions from the Buddha, and Chanya did not change, did not correct, and he wasn't pleased, and he continued to scold and abuse these 2 very, very brilliant, achieved, highly attained bhikkhus. So the Buddha eventually, kept hearing about this, and eventually the Buddha said, call the bhikkhus, assembled in front of him and said, well, China would not change during my time, but he will change after I go into Nibbana. So on the eve of the Nibbana of the Buddha called Ananda to his side and said to him, and instruct Ananda to impose Brahma punishment. We call it Brahma Mandanda. That means keeping silence. He said, when you all should keep silence to Chanya behaviors, that means just ignore him. to have nothing to do with him. And Ananda said, okay, so after the Buddha went into Nibbana, that's what the bhikkhu community did to Chanya. And eventually, Chanya, because of that distance between him and the other bhikkhus, and the silence that the bhikkhu all adopted because of the advice from the Buddha, Chanya reflected upon himself because his teacher was gone. Like the Buddha went into Nibbana. And then he had this treatment from the bhikkhu community of not advising him, admonishing him, punishing him, nothing. They did not say anything, they did not do anything, they just ignore him. So he learned about this punishment, he learned about this attitude of the bhikkhu community, and he felt a very deep and bitter remorse. And he really knew that he was wrong, and by having that kind of remorse, he actually fainted 3 times. And then he went up to all the bhikkhus community and asked for pardon. That means asked for penitence. And then from that moment, he totally changed his way of behavior, and also his demeanor, and also his experience actually changed because of his changing in all his demeanor and all his attitude. And he also obeyed all the instructions given to him by the other senior bhikkhus. And of course, because of that, he worked very diligently and eventually attained arahantship. So this verse was given by the Buddha when he was still alive. He actually said these to the bhikkhus, not to Chanya. He said this: do not associate with evil companions, because when you do, you actually would commit a lot of unwholesome deeds. And you need to associate with noble persons and make them your good friends. So what is a true friend do? What does a true friend do? Okay, so in verse 76, it says, if one finds someone who points out faults and who reproves that means to point out your things and sort of like, what is a better word for reproofs? Correcting, admonishing, not punishing, but correcting, admonishing. You could say punishing too, but not in an abusive way, right? And one should follow such a wise and sagacious, not S-E-S-A, sagacious person. That means a sage, right? A sane person, a wise person. As one would a guide to hidden treasure, it is always better and never worse to cultivate such an association. When you associate with such a person, such a person who would point out your mistakes, who would admonish you, who would advise you, with what? With wisdom. With wisdom, with good advices, with reasons. And those are your good friends. So this is what a good friend does. This is what a good friend should do. So this verse says that means one should follow a man of wisdom, right? So with this story, actually the story about Thera Ratha, he was a very poor old Brahmin, and he stayed in the monastery, and he do all these little services, small services for the bhikkhus. So because of his services, he was provided with food and lodgings inside the vihara. And but he was not encouraged. He was not allowed to join the bhikkhu order, although he had a very strong desire to become a bhikkhu. One day early in the morning, when the Buddha was, in deep meditation and he surveyed the whole world, he saw this Ratha was ready to actually receive the teachings. So he went to see the old man and learned from him that the bhikkhus of the monastery refused to let him enter the bhikkhu order. So the Buddha called all the bhikkhus to him and asked them, "Is there any bhikkhu here who can recollect or recall any good things that was done by this old man to the bhikkhu order?" Sariputra was the first one to reply. "Oh, Venerable Sir, yes, dear Buddha, I do recollect, I do recall an instance. This old man offered me a spoonful of rice." And the Buddha said, "If that is so, shouldn't you help him, the one who brings you benefits, your benefactor? Shouldn't you help him to get liberated from the ills of life, from sufferings of life?" Sariputra agreed that this old man should become a bhikkhu. And then that old man was admitted to become a bhikkhu. Then Sariputra put his effort in to guide this old man, and this old man strictly follows the guidance. Within a few days, this old man, after becoming a bhikkhu, attained arahantship. And you see, this is what the Buddha did when he was in his lifetime. The bhikkhu did not want this old man to become, or did not allow this old man to come into the community, the bhikkhu community. That was a fault. That was not correct. So the Buddha pointed it out. You should remember those who actually have brought benefits to you, and you should help them to liberate from their sufferings. And why would people advise you? Why would people advise you? Because they see it differently from your point of view. And if anybody who point out your faults and who reprove you, that doesn't mean that they hate you. On the other hand, it means that they love you. They care about you. That's why they advise you. They reprove you. They reprove you. If they don't care about you, if they don't love you, why would they bother? Why would they spend their energy on advising you? And, and also risking that you're going to hate them. Right? It's a lot of time when I advise people, especially my students, and even the young nuns, when I advise them, they don't like it, they hate it. I can see it from the face. I can see it right there, that face just, Yeah. Because they don't think that my advice, maybe they don't think that my advice is good, or maybe I hurt their feelings because they think that I hurt their feelings, but they forget. Why do I advise them? Why do I reprove them? Why? I'm so senior. Doesn't mean that I have the right to advise them. I have the right to reprove them. But I have that experience, 30 years of experience as a nun. I have walked that path. And I know if they go on like this, it's not going to be a happy life. It's not going to be a happy community. It's not going to be a harmonious community. But because of people's habitual behavior, ego, or whatever, they just don't like it. They just don't like to hear. They just don't like to see. They just don't like your advice. That's all. Sometimes I'm lucky. I get, oh, I'm sorry. And then they walk away. Sometimes I don't get lucky. They don't even say I'm sorry. And they pull that long face for a day, for a week, even for a month, or even for 2 months. It doesn't matter whether I am lucky or not lucky. It is really none of my business. It's not my business. I have done what I have done. Now, from here, from this verse, you can see, you see why I previously told you that you should not advise more than 3 times. Remember? This is where it came from. 3 times. From China, the previous one, okay? 3 times. So don't go over 3 times. The 4th time is your own stubbornness. All right. So you really, when somebody really come to tell you that maybe I think this is not right, and maybe I think you could improve on this, or maybe whatever that people advise you, don't just jump onto an impulsive behavior reaction. Take a step back, and no matter what, have that kind of gratitude first. Because it's always better to cultivate that kind of relationship, association. Okay? So what kind of attitudes should we have towards friends? Should we adopt towards friends or as a friend? Or as a friend? What kind of attitude? It's actually similar to the last one, is let him admonish, let him instruct, and shield one from wrong. He indeed is dear to the good and detestable to the evil. The evil don't like this kind of people. The evil do not like people who admonish, who instruct, who shield one from wrong. Because the evil want people to be evil, right? So anybody who advise people not to become evil, the evils don't like them. So this is what it says in this verse. So if you want to hear the story about this verse, is there are 2 bhikkhus, Asaji and Punya. So Asaji and Punya, they have, both of them, they have 5, or among them they have 500 disciples. While staying in the village, they make their living by planting flowering beds and fruits. And so, in one of the bhikkhus' precepts is they are not allowed to do any planting or farming. So the Buddha, hearing this, he sent Sariputra and Mahamukkanana to go and to stop them from committing further misconduct. So to these 2 chief disciples, the Buddha said this first to the Sariputra and Mahamukkanana, and tell them to go and tell this to bhikkhus who actually run a business of planting flowers and fruits. So tell those bhikkhus not to destroy the faith and generosity of these lay people by misconduct. And if anyone should disobey drive them out of the monastery. And the Buddha said, do not hesitate to do as I told you, for only fools dislike being given good advice and being forbidden to do evil. So this is actually the advice of the Buddha to Sariputra and Mahamoggallana, how to advise the other bhikkhus. So let him admonish, instruct, and shield one from wrongs. He indeed is dear to the good and detestable to the evil. So this is the attitude towards friends. And so we should partner. What kind of partnership should we have? In verse 61 it said, should a seeker not find a companion who is his better or equal, let him resolutely pursue a solitary course. There is no fellowship with a fool. That means we should not partner up with a fool. So simple. So this is talking about Mahakassapa, also one of the great disciples of the Buddha. When Mahakassapa was residing near Rajagaha, he had two very young bhikkhus staying with him. One of them was very respectful, one very, very, very dutiful, very, very responsible and very diligent. But the other one was very slacking, very lazy, not responsible at all. So when Mahakassapa actually scolded this young one for his, slacking, laziness, and irresponsible and all that, he was very offended, the young bhikkhu. On one occasion when he went to the house, this young one went to the house of a householder and told them that this Mahakassapa was very sick. He needed special food. So the householder offered us food, and then this young bhikkhu was going to bring the food back, expected to bring the food back to Mahakassapa, but on the way he ate all the food. So that bad, that irresponsible. Then, of course, by the time he got back to the monastery, he was admonished by Mahakassapa. And this young bhikkhu became even more angry. The next day, when Mahakassapa went out for alms, this young foolish bhikkhu set the fire to the monastery and he burned down this monastery. When then a bhikkhu went to Rajagaha and he told the Buddha this story, and the Buddha said this verse. He pronounced this verse. He said, should a seeker not find a companion who is his better or equal, at least his equal, if not better. Of course, it's better to have better, but at least it's equal. Let him resolutely pursue a solitary course. That doesn't mean that when you don't get along with people, you just move away. You go into solitary. That is not the right way. Okay? And there is no fellowship with the fool. So you don't really need to move away into solitary, especially bhikkhuni. Bhikkhuni should not live on one's own. Bhikkhuni in our community or in our precepts is always in living in a community. So, but solitary, that means you could be physically solitary, I think, or you could be like physically not solitary, but solitary, like I just ignore or just be on your own and mind your own business, but still living in a community like that. So this is the verse 61. So what kind of friends you could consider are the best kind of friends? So 193. This is such a beautiful picture. Huh? What's it called? What this bay is called? Coal Harbor in Vancouver. If you want to see Coal Harbor, come. This is Coal Harbor on a cool day. Very, very nice with the fog. Verse 193. Hard to find is a thoroughbred man. He is not born everywhere. Where such a wise man is born, that clan thrives happily. So it says the best kind of friends. This is actually a I think it's a very nice story. It's a story of question raised by Ananda. Ananda thought one day, the Buddha always talk about the best kind of horse, the best kind of elephants, which is the best breed of elephants and horse. But he never said anything about the best kind of man or thoroughbred breed or bred man. And I need to go and ask the Buddha. So Ananda went to ask the Buddha, and the Buddha actually said this verse to Ananda: hard to find is the thoroughbred man. And I consider that it's the Buddha himself. Because thorough, right? Thorough, that means completed, perfections. And when such a wise man is born into that particular clan or particular tribe or particular existence, that clan, that tribe, or that existence will thrive very happily. Why? Because that's perfection, a perfected being. And of course, in the commentary, it says, a thorough that clan is the clan of Katya, that clan is the clan of Brahma. But I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I mean, then there will be no tribe on earth which can be happy, right? So I don't agree with just that Katya or Brahma. But I agree that whenever there is such person being born into such families or such community or such world or such nation, I'm sure that happiness would thrive in such dwellings. Okay, and then the next one is the best kind of good friends is in 206 to 208, but I take out 207 and 208 to share tonight. Is indeed one who moves in the company of fools grieves for a long time. Of course, if you're always in the company of fools, you will never be happy. And when you are in the company of fools, that means you are in the company of evil. And how can you have good friends? Those are evil friends. Association with fools is ever painful, like partnership with an enemy. But happy is association with the wise, like meeting one's own relatives. Okay, you may say, I'm in bad relationship with my relatives, so you're one in a million kind. So, but most people do have some good relationships with some members of the family, or your siblings or distant families. But of course, the Buddha in his teachings, he already taught and talked about relationship with families, relationship with wives, relationship with children, relationships with parents and servants and all that. So he wanted he wanted his students to have that, to follow his teachings, to have that kind of relationship with families, with relatives. So I think that's why it came these verses. Okay, so and 207 and then 208. So follow the noble one who is steadfast, wise, learned, dutiful, devout. One should follow only such a person who is truly good and discerning, even as the moon follows the path of the stars. Or I think this one actually at the end is not even. I think it's like the moon follows the path of the stars. I think that will be a better translation. Like the moon. You don't have to change, okay? So these two verses actually come from this story. I think I told this story last time about the Sekha king. He managed to actually look after the Buddha when the Buddha was going into paranibbana, when the Buddha had that dysentery, and he nursed the Buddha for a long time, for almost over a month. And then the bhikkhu thought, wow, the Sekha king came to nurse the Buddha for such a long time. And why was that? And the bhikkhus were very, very surprised. So the Buddha heard the remarks, and the Buddha said, there is nothing surprising about the Sekha's love and devotion to me, because during one lifetime, he was very old. He grew very old, and he was about to pass away. Before he passed away, actually, I gave him Dhamma. And because he listened, he heard the Dhamma, he actually attained the stream entry attainment. And that's why he became very grateful. That's why he was reborn as a Sekha king. So that's why this lifetime, when I became a Buddha, he came back to nurse me. So that was the whole story about this verse 207, 206, 207, and 208. This is the story of the Sekha king coming to nurse the Buddha before the Buddha went into paranibbana. So the Buddha said, it is good to see the noble ones, the Aryas, and it is a pleasure to live with them. And to live with fools is indeed painful and grief. So we need to learn how to choose our good friends, how to actually associate with them. And when we actually have a good friend who reside with us or who live with us, who advise us, we should be so grateful. And we should follow them like the moon follows the path of the stars. And in the Dhammapada, actually it gave, I think it gives a very good metaphor of the true good friends. This metaphor, maybe you don't agree with me this is a metaphor, but I do see it as a metaphor. It is verse 219. It says, after a long absence, a man safely returns home from afar. His relatives, his friends, and well-wishers welcome him home on arrival. Okay, so this is like a long-lost friend coming home. But what I meant, the metaphor is here. As relatives welcome a dear one on arrival, even so, his own good deeds, this is the metaphor. The metaphor of a good friend is his own good deeds, will welcome the doer of good who has gone from this world to the next. So from this world to the next. So So our own good deeds are just like relatives and friends, good relatives, close relatives, helpful, and good friends who advise and admonish us. So that's why I put it in here. So if any of you think this is not to the topic, just let me know. Okay, but this is how I feel about this verse, and I think his own good deeds are just metaphors of good relatives or good friends. And this is actually a story of Nadia. So the Buddha actually uttered these two verses, 219 and 220, with reference to Nadia. Nadia was a very rich man from Varanasi. After listening to the Buddha's discourse and the benefits of building monasteries and all that for bhikkhus, and Nadia built a very big monastery for Buddha in Isipatana. And the building was so well decorated, so well furnished. As soon as the monastery was built and offered to the Buddha, actually a mansion came up in the Tapatisma heaven, in the Diva world. One day when Mahamukkanana went into a deep meditative state, and he actually went into this Diva heavenly beings, heavenly world, and he saw a big mansion, and then with a name it was meant for Nadia. So on his return back to this earthly existence, he went to ask the Buddha. He went to talk to the Buddha. So Mahamukkanana went to see the Buddha and said, "Dear teacher, for those who perform meritorious deeds, do they really have mansions and other riches prepared for them in the future in the Diva world? Even while they are still living in this earthly world?" The Buddha asked Mahamukkanana, "Didn't you see it when you were there? Didn't you see that mansion when you were there, up there? Why did you ask? Don't you believe it?" And so that's when actually the Buddha uttered these two verses. So his own good deeds are his own friends, own good friends. So when the Buddha said, when the good one dies, they are welcomed joyfully to the abode of the Devas. Just like one has gone afar and welcomed back by the close relatives and good friends when they come home. So these are the little teachings on good friends that I have from Dhammapada. Of course, you may be able to find more verses about good friends. If you do, let me know. And I have some points of reflections with all of you. Maybe we can actually spend a few minutes tonight because we finished a little bit early today. So do you have some good friends in your life? Well, I want you to contemplate on your definition of good friends first. And then you should reflect on these. Do you have some good friends in your life? And do they have some common good qualities? Among all these good friends that you have, do they have some common good qualities? How have these good friends influenced you? And what would you say to them in a few words, or with a few words? What would you say to them? Okay, why don't we do it tonight? Just like this. You don't have to spend a whole month thinking about this. worrying about what to say, right? Or if you have any sharing about tonight's exploration of Dhammapada, if you have some sharing, we have a little time. And the floor is yours. Do you have some good friends in your life? I have. Not many, but a few. Yeah. I do. Anybody say I do? Not everybody say I do. Wow. Okay. Then you have to think about that, right? Okay. So anybody who has actually said I do, you want to share something about your good friends?
Is Molly nodding? Oh, there we go.
Irene, yeah. Molly said she has some good friends because I said, anybody agree with me? I do. I have some good friends. Irene, yeah.
Is she speaking? Oh.
Are you speaking, Irene? Can you play out from your computer? No?
Sorry.
I can't hear.
Yeah, I'll just play it from. Let's try this.
I don't know what's wrong.
That's good. I can hear now.
Okay. Awesome.
Sorry.
Can everybody hear her?
Yeah.
Everybody can hear her. Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, I do have some good friends in my life, and either they are my teachers or friends. A long term, how do I say it? They do have the same quality, which is, they will provide you with the good advice. Like, it doesn't matter, like, they do not expect anything in return. They just want to show their gratitude and show their love to me as a friend or advisor. Either they are my common good qualities, from the people the person that I identify as good friends. And they most often have the high virtue, they taking precepts.
They taking what?
Precepts.
Precepts. Oh, I see. Okay. Morality. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
They're moral. Good. Nice. You're lucky.
yeah, I'm lucky. So
You're very fortunate to have such good friends.
I agree.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? I do. Okay, Varsha.
There. Good evening. Yeah, I have a few really good friends, and well, we have a lot of things in common. But I would say that what makes them good friends for me is we have so many shared values, and I think feels safe to be with these friends because I know they have values. So that safetiness is really important to me. And I think what makes them special is when we're having a good time, we're just laughing and working hard and having a good time. But sometimes things come up in people's lives and we talk about it. And what's really helpful is we all share that same dharmic lens. And so these introducing to them, trying to navigate life using that Dharma lens. And that's what makes them really special to me, and that's what's influenced me. So
Good.
yeah, it's very fortunate to have good friends.
What would you say to them with a few words? In a few words.
In a few words, I'm so grateful and I feel so lucky. So thank you.
Good. Wonderful. Nice. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Laurie.
I'll try this again. I was going to say that earlier, that Dhamma friends are so important for me, and but I have friends that I've had for 40 years, and the common quality that they share is that they are always gently nudging me in the right direction to be a better person. And so if I get turned around or mixed up or going down the wrong path, my friends never fail. They listen and they nod their head and then they say, "But Lori," and it's so reassuring.
Good.
You know that these friends have my back.
Yeah.
And, keep me going the right way.
Great.
So I would say to them, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Wow. Wonderful. Great. Nice. Nice to have those friends for 40 years. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, Mali, Tisa. Hello, good night, good evening. Not good night, good evening.
I was going to say that we have known you for such a long time.
Yeah.
As a mentor, teacher, but also a friend.
Friends, yeah, we are good friends, good old friends.
I have talked to you about many things in life and shared a lot of things in the past.
Yes.
And you have inspired us, and good friends influence you, you inspire us. Anytime we listen to a Dhamma talk for a week or so, I'm really paying attention to everything, and of course after a week, things get back to my old self. But first few weeks, it's always like, oh, this is what Suku said. It always it's in the back of my mind.
Yes.
And Tessa and I always appreciated everything you do for everybody in the community, and you influence everybody, not just us. So yeah, our gratitude to you.
Thank you, thank you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Anybody else? What about from here? Anybody else here? No? Good friends. Fong King, okay.
Thank you, Sifu. Good evening, everyone. For me, I'm grateful that I have a few good friends. Some are one of them is my secondary, my schoolmates from secondary school till now. Although she's in Australia, still I feel connected with them. And I also have some good friends. And what I find in common is I think of a phrase. I feel like birds of the same feather gather together. We are all helpful people. We like to help each other. And when I look, I find that when we were young, throughout all the years, we help each other. We give support to each other. But this moment, when I'm more mature.
Mm.
And look back, I find that they are not only, we are not helping each other, but these friends are also my teachers.
Yes.
My teachers.
Yeah.
I learn a lot from them.
Yes.
So this moment you ask me, I say that I would say thank you to them, and I'm grateful. I'm so lucky that I have met so many good teachers in my life, giving me a lot of support
Good.
through ups and downs.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
The most important thing to me in my life. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Good. Yeah. Good thing that you can see your friends as your teachers. That you look up to them, you respect them, and you love them, and they love you back, and it's to support each other. And that's actually very important is the trust between people that a lot of people are lacking now. A lot of relationships are lacking trust and respect, and those are very, very wonderful, precious qualities that are definitely needed, definitely existed in relationships, or you would say good relationships or wholesome relationships or whatever relationships that you want to talk about, is the trust and respect. I have so many good friends, and I cannot tell you how many good friends that I have, because even the inmate friend that passed away a couple of weeks ago, I considered him as one of my good friends, because he taught me a lot through the years of him coming to meditate with us. I learned a lot from him. He had a lot of respect to us. He had a lot of trust, especially on me. Now he's gone. I could share his stories, and I'm sure he didn't mind me sharing his story. He has been in and out of prison for 40 years. He was 76, I think, when he died. So he actually was in and out for 40 years, he told me. And this last sentence was a life. So, but anyway, I did not know too much of his history, but this is all I knew because he told me in person. But then the very, very, very moment that he touched me touched my heart was, one day I went in, I don't know who I went in with that night. There was a memorial board there with a name on it. That name actually rang a bell. It seems that I knew that person who was on that board. So during the break, I asked the guys. There was quite a big group that night. I asked the guys, "Is this the George that I knew?" They said yes. The George actually did not come for meditation. I only met him always on the way out because he was a caregiver, and he always accompanied an elderly inmate to the Bible study. So every time we left, so the Bible study people come to the chapel when we were leaving the chapel. So I always bump into this elderly, older inmate, and who had a caregiver, and the caregiver was George. So I always ask, "Hi, how are you, George?" And I remember George actually had an encounter when I talked about advanced care planning in the prison many years ago. So I met him once. But then Ken told me, yes, this was the George. I said, "Oh, what happened?" He said he has PFV. Yeah, he has a private family visit, and but he did not have family to come and visit him. That means he had a cottage to himself for 3 days. It's called private family visit, but he did not have family members who came to visit him that day, and he committed suicide during that visit time that he had on his own. He killed himself. That's why his name was on the board. And so Ken told me that he killed himself. It was horrible. I said, ooh. So then during the break, Ken came to me and said to me, you know, sister, I had that suicidal thought all the time. And I once tried to hang myself, but the rope broke and I fell down. And then I went to a church, and then I started studying the Bible again. And it saved me. I said, good for you. I said, so did George passing actually impacted you? Had an impact on you? He said, it did. It actually reminded me of my own suicide. I said, so how did it remind you of? He said, I knew it wasn't right. It wasn't correct to do that. But when you are very weak, you wouldn't be able to think twice, clearly. But now I have made a decision. I said, what kind of decision? I'm going to tell somebody if I ever have that kind of thought. I said, good for you. He said, you'll be the first one to know. I will tell you. You will be the first one to know if I have that kind of thoughts. I said, wow. That is total trust. Not anybody else. Me. I mean, we only go in every Thursday night, right? And every other month we have 1 day meditation, and we hardly had time to actually have long and deep discussion. But he could actually put that trust in me. He said, you will be the first person I will come and tell you that I have that kind of thought. And I said, what do you expect me to do? He said, I don't expect you to do anything. He said, I know that you will just listen. You'll just be there. I tell you, this is a trust. And he was my teacher at that time, teaching me about trust. Teaching me about you don't have to do anything to please people. You just have to bring out your own goodness when you are with people. When you bring out your own goodness, and people would just feel, people would just take it in, and that trust will be just naturally developed. So I have many good friends. Anybody that I encounter in my life, I consider them to be my good friend. So what should I say to them? I say, I love you because you have helped me to grow. I'm so grateful because you have helped me to see there are so many good qualities human being can have. There are so many, and it's possible. You know, this is what I wanted to say to my good friends. Thank you for being so patient to listen to my story. All right. Okay, so sit on these questions. We can further discuss this, giving you a month's time to think about this. All right? Any more? Any more questions or any more sharing about tonight? Okay? All right then. Cold Harbor picture. So the next one, exploring the Dhammapada, will be in the new year, January the 6th, 2023. Whoo! Time flies. So, Merry Christmas month and Happy New Year. So let us dedicate our merits then. May these blessings extend to all, that we with all the other living beings together will attain the Buddha way. May we wish more and more people will encounter the wise words of the Buddha, study them, understand them, practice them, so they could help themselves to be liberated from all the sufferings, all the miseries, and be ultimately free, ultimately be happy and be peaceful. May you all be well. May you all have a great month of December, and may we all have a great start in 2023.